thanks for coming down, man.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
I really thought I was gonna stump you with like, when was the last time you were down in this neighborhood?
That's like your favorite question.
Because you know why? Because everyone that we get is usually ultra buttoned up, suit and tie, you know, big real estate pro, but they're way too cool to come down.
Yeah, they're not coming
here.
down to hipster central.
Yeah, they can't go below 40th Street during Monday through Friday. So
that's right.
No, so I like to throw it out. I like to see who actually makes it down. But you, as a true New Yorker, you're like, no, dude, I was just around the corner.
Yeah, that's cool.
A week ago.
Yeah, I live just a couple blocks away in NoHo. Been in that location for, oh my God, probably about 8-9 years, and then lived in what was the related building on 14th Street.
Oh, cool.
For 5 or 6 before that.
So are you an Oura Ring guy?
I'm getting into it.
Yeah.
My wife got me this for the holidays.
Is it worth the hype?
I think it's like anything. It's what you put into it. It's what
Right.
you get out of it. So
My wife has it. She doesn't understand like what half the data is.
I like how gentle you are asking him about it, because when I had the Whoop and you said,
you got the Whoop.
oh, you got a Whoop.
Hey, look, we're all
what's it,
basically
helping you sleep?
This is like a test case. I got an Apple Watch. You
Yeah,
have a
but
Whoop.
you
Jonathan's
attacked
got
me for getting this, and with Jonathan, you're like, "Hey man, is that a?"
Well, that's a status symbol. Like having an Oura Ring is cool.
I thought.
Is that right?
Oh, you see, I thought it was the opposite. I thought the Whoop was
No, dude.
like.
No, Whoop is.
Are we the
I feel
cult?
like if someone's wearing a Whoop.
2020.
No. I think if someone's wearing a Whoop and they run into someone with the Oura Ring, they're
like,
kind
oh,
of
it's
look down on.
it's
They're
a
like,
cult.
you don't even know what the data is.
Yeah. Oh.
Like,
Mine uses
so
AI.
You're not tracking your blood oxygenation level. Like,
Yeah, my
at
buddy
11
the
a.m.
other week like one up me. I guess I got the mid tier version. It's like he's like, oh, is that the one that does like the echocardiogram? I was like, what?
I mean, if you care about your health, then you might.
All right, dude. I'm not like in my late.
Is it
60s,
weird if
70s.
someone has both an Apple Watch and an Aura Ring?
Yeah, then you're doing too much.
You're doing too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to know. I mean, for fitness, I
Yeah.
can't stand people in my office with the Apple Watch.
Oh, really? I'm not a watch guy, so like this just makes me feel like I have something.
You're
but I don't.
part of the crowd.
I'm
now.
just saying this is actually typically I'm wearing a watch on the inside of the wrist.
Oh, really?
Look, it just
Does that make more sense intuitively? So much easier to go like
It
this.
does make sense. You're right.
I find it easier,
Never thought about that.
and as a kid, I would just call people out, be like, "Look, but by the time you have an iPhone, you're checking your eye. You have this beautiful watch, you're
Right.
checking your iPhone for the time.
So
Just admit
true.
it's a jewelry piece.
It's
half the time it's not
totally-
even set, and I'll own it. Like I'm fine with that, but just admit it. Or someone who's got a watch with 22 complications. You don't even know how to.
Yeah,
use
come
that.
on.
Yeah.
How often are you
Name
diving?
one of those.
Yeah, that's right. The moon phase.
Yeah.
Like,
You're tracking the moon
you're an
phase.
astrologer. I had no idea.
So true.
Well, dude, it's great to have you on.
Thank
this
you.
was a long time coming, so I'm excited for it. For those who don't know, you're doing a lot in the office space. You come from a family that's got some real estate background. You'll talk about all this. But let's get into it. So we started. You're a lifelong New Yorker. You grew up. You said JG Mellon, so you grew up Upper East Side.
I grew up Upper East Side.
Cool.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, liked it.
I loved it. And as much as I love downtown, I don't know. It's I wouldn't call it a fight. It's a consistent conversation of when moving back. For me, the Upper East Side's changed, just like so much of the city.
Changed so much
for all of its connotations and everything. I think people don't realize, 40 years ago, just how much of a neighborhood, the Upper East Side was, as most neighborhoods are. But when I was growing up, 86th Street was still effectively Germantown. My family background is partially from Austria. So being able to walk a couple blocks with my father and my uncle and have schnitzel at a bar, literally with sawdust on the floor.
This is cool.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so
By the way, it's the sawdust is still there. That's part of their thing.
what's that place called?
What is it?
There's a
Honestly,
couple of
you
them.
just-
The only one that's really left up there is a place called Heidelberg.
Yeah.
Which is like a butcher shop and German restaurant. So.
Yeah, that's a big thing for
Right,
the
so-
institutions in New York.
So your family is a pretty well-known real estate family in New York. Tell us, take a step back. Like, how far back does your family go in New York? And how did the business on that side get started?
Yeah. So the business started, it's on my mother's side of the family, the Kaufman side. And her grandfather, my great-grandfather, William Kaufman, started the business in 1924.
And he was first generation from
off the boat.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right, so he
he
comes
was
from Austria.
originally from Russia through Poland.
Got it.
Classic.
So our family left, do the pogroms,
Sure.
moved west, like so many of the Jewish families at that time, and then eventually made their way over to the U.S. In fact, in our small meeting room, we have a lot of family memorabilia, and we have his paperwork going through,
Oh, that's so
cool.
through Ellis Island.
Very cool.
Among a lot
Very
of other
cool.
family historical
Sure.
documents and elements. He dropped out of school and worked on a fruit push cart in Lower East Side tenement.
I love seeing those like
housing.
old black and white photos of the Lower East Side back in the day, and everything's in like Yiddish and Hebrew and whatever
and
else.
I think probably one of those photos, if not too fuzzy,
He's there.
He's this
That's so
young kid in his teens, working a push cart, and then his history gets a little gray. I think a lot of the old real estate families, what you hear is, either they were a tradesman and then started a construction company and then realized there's more, for some, more money in actually owning the asset than building it or fixing it up. So many of the stories, right, is they were in a business and woke up one day and realized that the building that they owned was worth more than the operating business, right? Textiles, whatever.
Right.
And be like, okay, well, I'm going to be in real estate. For my great grandfather, the story's a little bit more aloof. The history that we have is there was a non-blood cousin, basically a female cousin of his, and her husband was in real estate. What that meant at that time, we have no idea. And he said that's what I want to do.
All right. Wow.
And so he formed the William Kaufman organization in 1924. So we just celebrated our centennial.
Oh,
wow.
Which is pretty amazing.
That's awesome.
So what's the first, do you know the first type of real estate he got into?
No, from 1924 to about 1930, we don't really have many details. Starting in 1930, though, we know in 2930 that he was doing single lot family houses. So Saddle River, New Jersey. Buy a piece of land, right?
Yeah.
Chop it up into 120 lots, literally build out that model home.
This is a really early community builder. That's
In fact, in New Jersey, we built FHA house number 1.
wow.
So when the FHA was formed, right, and providing loans, they were numbered by state. So in no way are we saying that we did FHA loan number 1.
Yeah.
But the actual FHA loan for New Jersey, we were number 1.
That's so cool, man. I don't think I've ever heard anything like that.
Yeah. So he was doing that in the 1930s. And basically he would just look for opportunities. I think where his genius lay, and a lot of what is foundational for our company, is he really tried to look at what was going on within American society, looking to see what's truly happening at the macro level and the true macro level, and how would that impact real estate, and how could he take advantage of it. So obviously the passing of FHA, and how he could utilize that, and I don't think he was singular in that approach, but after World War II, and where both his sons served, my great uncle Melvin Kaufman and my grandfather Robert Melvin in the European theater, and my grandfather Robert in the Pacific theater. When they came back, they effectively joined the business.
Wow.
And Robert actually went back to NYU, and amazingly, I had no idea that the program existed this long. Graduated in the first class to get a bachelor's in science in real estate. All the way back in the
I didn't realize that
1940s.
they even
I thought that'd be a new thing.
I thought that was something from the 1980s.
I literally thought they came up with a real estate program.
NYU was the first one to have it.
No
he
kidding.
graduated in the class, happenstance. But to William's vision there, what he saw was the discussion and then the passing of the GI Bill. And his bet was that the passing of the GI Bill would create the world's most educated workforce that we'd ever seen.
He nailed it.
And he wasn't wrong.
Yeah.
And then his extrapolation from that is, well, those people are no longer working on farms, no longer working in industries.
Right.
Obviously, we had a level of a service economy before World War II, but it's really the GI Bill, right, that spurs that education. And where are those people going to work? And they're going to need to work in office buildings. And so much of the technology that came about in preparation and then through World War II, some of that was applied to office buildings.
That is it. Now, obviously, in hindsight and 100 years later, it seems super intuitive, but that is a very big vision.
How do you take a step back and just look at that? I feel like that's
such
so,
a big vision to
hard
make
to
that
see
prediction.
that coming.
He saw a few layers ahead, and obviously, it, it's paid. But you made a comment. We started talking about this, and then you made a comment. We said, "All right, let's hold it for the show." You said that the door wasn't open originally. Is that? I mean, tell me at what point that door wasn't open. And for
now
who?
we're talking about your business and what you're doing, which is separate from that business.
Right, and I don't want to jump. So it started with your great-grandfather, then your grandfather,
my grandfather and his brother.
Right.
And then I'll say we pseudo-skipped a generation.
Okay.
So they ran the business together, really as a team. I mean, obviously, William Kaufman being the patriarch, but he deferred tremendously and treated his sons like partners, which I think a testament to how the business was successful and worked, and really found the areas in which both of his sons excelled and shined and supported them within those respective areas. So with Melvin, construction, design, particularly creative design, which he got from William. My grandfather, Robert, much more analytical, numbers, so financing, leasing, were kind of his two areas of expertise, but they all worked in conjunction together. My father, obviously my mother's husband, but not blood for Kaufman's Iger, which is where I get my last name.
As in the Disney Iger, right? I know you're related to.
I've used that once. So years ago, my brother was going to. I think he was still at USC at the time. He's a film producer, and
it's perfect for him.
Yes. So I don't know how he uses it, but I was asking, what kind of restaurants or what restaurant do you want to go to? And as Nancy Silverton's new as Osteria Mozza, impossible to get in. And I was only there for like the weekend. So it was a Friday or Saturday night. Like I'm not. So I just called up and I'm like, I pretend I'm my own assistant, but I say I need to book a table for two for Jonathan Iger, not Eager, Iger. It's the only time in my life when we showed up, or I've ever shown up, where someone looked at me as if my name was Michael Jordan.
That's amazing.
Michael Jordan.
That's amazing.
They looked at me, my brother, with such disdain, and the table that they had set up for us was like, it's Saturday at 8 p.m.
Yeah, it was like the best spot.
So fun.
That's the only
amazing.
time I've
honestly, I don't
done
even
the
blame you. I
flip.
think that's
I would use it as much as I could, but
that's really funny.
Yeah, I guess when he was running, what was it? ABC, Good Morning America, whatever that show was, right? Way before Disney, and then they were acquired to ABC. That name didn't have as much pull growing up in New York.
Right. So that's funny.
I'll have to ask my brother how
okay, so your dad was in the business, or
so my father was a real estate attorney. And he was asked to come into the business late 1970s. And did a 10-year stint as general counsel at Sage. Left as we were topping out 17 State Street, which is our last ground-up office development in New York City. And then he came back a number of years later. At that time, what was probably about a 3 million square foot portfolio, I'd say probably over 2.2 million square feet were rolling within an 18, 24 month period. So pretty critical time. And he was brought in to work obviously with Melvin and Robert, but specifically Robert in effectuating the leasing. Did that successfully for 2 years. got us through that significant roll, back to whatever 90+% occupancy.
Sure.
And then left again. And part of the reason was both times. While they'd invite him into the business, it was very clear that they were going to hold on to this forever. And so there really just wasn't the opportunities that existed. We were in New York done developing after 1988.
If you're still waiting on support tickets or chasing down wires, here's your sign. You've outgrown your current investor portal. InvestNext gives you modern raised infrastructure with waterfall automation, ACH payouts, and seamless co-sponsor support that scales. No more bolted-on features or just live with it answers. Your next raise deserves better. See why today's GPs are switching to InvestNext at investnext.com/nocap.
But were there any acquisitions on the horizon? Is that?
Yeah, we started buying, this is in the 90s, mixed-use portfolios throughout the United Kingdom.
How does that happen? How do you go across the pond and start buying deals there?
I think my great uncle Melvin really liked the idea of being a global real estate company.
Totally, yeah.
So
you could just go to Canada and say you're global. Maybe.
It doesn't have the same cachet.
Yeah, particularly if they become the 51st state at
That's
some
a good point.
So,
Wait, before we go down this road, I want to ask you, when did they start Sage as a separate entity from the William Kaufman organization?
Yeah, so William Kaufman organization started in 1924. I'll spill all the marbles. Sage Realty Corporation technically started in 1938. Like the actual documents, the formation, right? The partnership agreement. We have no idea what it was for. It was obviously for a real estate investment.
Okay.
But we have no history behind
interesting.
it.
Okay.
And in the late 1960s, Melvin, Robert, and William decided that they were going to bring property management in-house. And I don't know if they were kicking around names or someone noticed this effectively defunct holding company. And they liked the name. And so the company's technically been around since 1938, but really it's been our property management company, which grew obviously into leasing, construction management, design.
And then you still do all of those things under Kaufman as well?
We, no. So what we ended up doing, oh my God, probably, I guess it was sometime during COVID. So I'm going to say about 4 years ago, maybe 5 years. We, from a branding perspective, we rolled up the William Kaufman organization and Sage Realty, not from an actual structural, corporate governance, but from a branding, and we simply operate under Sage now.
Got it. So all the operations, so to say, are there, and then your holdings, effectively.
Yeah.
Super interesting. By the way, I commend you for actually knowing all this, because if we were talking about my family, we would have gotten like 15 years ago, and then it would have stopped. So good for you for handling the pressures of this. But okay, got it. So you grew up pretty well knowing of your grandfather and your great uncle?
No, we knew they were in real estate, but even today when people say like, "Oh, I'm interested in getting into real estate," I'm like, "What does that mean?" There's 20,000 jobs in real estate. I don't know if I was cognizant that he was a developer. I had some consciousness of that they owned properties.
As a kid, you wanted to be in the WWE. You wanted to wrestle people.
You don't know what that is.
So that was you.
That was whatever.
For me, it was the WWF until they were forced to change their name. Jumping on my parents' couch, thinking about flying elbows. But I had a love for the ocean. I thought when I was looking at colleges that there was a slight chance I'd be a marine biologist. I went to George Washington University. My first year, I actually declared as a philosophy major.
It was all because of that Seinfeld episode. You're like, I'm going to be a marine biologist.
That's exactly it.
That's right. So you lived in D.C. for a bit. You went to college in D.C.
I went to college in D.C.
And you worked there also for some time.
I did. I worked both when I was in college. not much real estate related. I did have a very cool job down there, though.
Do tell.
My uncle, who I worked for from 2008 to 2010, years after college, he ran a boutique investment firm, still does, called P&L Investments. And at the time when I was in college, before I got to college, but obviously during the time I was there, he had actually bought the presidential yacht. Now, most people don't even realize that
There used to be a
we
presidential.
used to have a presidential yacht.
I just learned this, by the way.
Really?
Yeah, so it's
Oh,
interesting.
amazing. So, like,
Jackson
no one knows
Hughes
this.
So now I'm an expert.
Okay.
Sorry.
Jackson
So
Big Dorks.
Please go on.
USS Sequoia. And he owned this, and it was known as a Trumpy yacht. Trumpy was a yacht building company. And it has an amazing history to it. It was purchased by the Navy and used on the Potomac during Prohibition to ensnare people selling alcohol. So people be in rowboats on the Potomac, and they come up to what they were thinking are wealthy people on a yacht to sell them booze, and it was actually the Navy.
Gotcha.
Hoover
So funny.
decided he wanted a presidential yacht. And he had some idea. He'd maybe been on the USS Sequoia at some point, and he hand selected that boat. So our country had a presidential yacht from
I'm shocked it
Hoover.
hasn't come back with Trump. Could you see Trump
It's gonna be a super
getting
yacht.
I
Getting a
might have
yacht.
to use some channels and pitch
Hey,
him
get it
on
from
that.
Qatar.
So
Yeah.
it'd
All right,
be a
Jack,
lot.
stop ruining it. We're writing the deck.
It
all
would be a
right?
lot bigger than what this yacht was. So anyway, and then Carter sold it. But he had some quote. America's not England.
Sure.
I'm not the Queen. I don't need a yacht, and
Yeah, makes sense.
and sold it, and it went through a couple different hands, and my uncle finally got his hands on it. He's a huge history buff.
Yeah, it's really cool.
So I worked as a deckhand on the boat.
Really?
I
Wait,
worked, yeah.
So what did you guys operate the boat as?
So he would rent it out as a event venue.
Oh, awesome.
So people at that time, I changed the business a little bit when I got down there, but at that time, basically you could rent it just for a dockside event, or it could be taken out for a 3 or 4 hour clip.
Rent a piece of history.
And
Yeah.
it's
That's
tied
very
into
cool.
a lot of crazy history. It's a real estate podcast, so afterwards,
well,
I'll give you a rundown.
Yeah,
But
we probably need to get into the real estate at some point. No rush.
We are. We need to
so-
know. This is the whole bit of it. All
Yeah.
right. So
Yeah.
you worked in DC, and this uncle also in the real estate business. Is this all? Did your family have a lot of other brothers, sisters who
No,
kind of
this was
branched
on my
out?
father's side of the family.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, this is her.
Just
his
coincidental.
middle sister's husband, and I went down to I went back down to DC to work with him. He was at that time running this company called P&L Investments. But his background was he was an attorney by trade, and had actually written what was known as the N series during the RTC days, the Resolution Trust Corporation. And while I didn't grow up all the history I just espoused, right, I knew very little of that until I came to work for Sage and pried it out of my grandfather and went through all records and things like that. What I did grow up knowing was how many people had built their careers during the RTC. Obviously, people like Barry Sternlicht and Bob Faith and so many others. And so, obviously not excited for how, the GFC impacted our country and the world. But I got excited thinking, like many of us did, that we were going to see another RTC.
Yeah.
Obviously, that did not come to fruition, but I went back down to DC to work with my uncle with the expectation that there was going to be RTC and we were going to do what people like
since
Barry
you're
and
our
Bob did.
history buff
Yeah.
for our we have a lot of much younger listeners who might even be analysts for you.
Yeah.
Can you give an abridged history of the purpose of the RTC and how it helped some of these folks?
Yeah. So what ended up occurring was not dissimilar to the GFC. There was in our country what was known as the savings and loans crisis. So it impacted some smaller regional banks. Did not really impact significantly, right? Larger banks. But savings and loans, which at the time, I don't know what the percentage was, but just like today, where it's more local banks that make up the majority of the loans on all property types.
Right.
Got into trouble. And so what the U.S. government did, really the Fed through the FDIC, is they set up the RTC, the Resolution Trust Corporation, in which they basically took over failed S&Ls and then owned all of this real estate or real estate debt. And what they ended up doing was they either partnered with real estate owners, developers, operators, or they simply sold. And if they partnered, you were buying in, and we saw this a little bit during the GFC, but Starwood with Chorus Bank, right? I mean, that was a $6+ billion deal. So there's only a couple people who could play in that area. The same way that we saw, there's only a couple people who really could truly bid that the Fed would, be comfortable selling, with the failure of Signature Bank a couple years ago. And this is where so many of the stalwarts of our industry really, I'll say made their bones. Obviously, Barry Sternler coming out of, JMB and Bob Faith and so many others, had already had a pretty significant career. But, when you talk about low basis, you can't really get much lower than what was occurring during the RTC days. So
that's right.
Yeah.
Got it. So, so you lived in DC, went to school, worked with your uncle, and then what was your progression? Because as impressive as your family is, you've got a lot of your own feats and you've done a lot. So I want to get to what you've done.
It was not the straight line that I think a lot of people see, and definitely not for family businesses and family real estate businesses. Like I was saying, it was pretty clear that the door was shut for William Kaufman Organization and Sage,
because they were really just holding tight and mostly just kind of, these are long-term holds at that point. They're not developing anything new.
It was their business. And I think what's amazing about our business, and you see it with Larry Silverstein, and you saw it with my great uncle and my grandfather, and Rudins and Resnicks and so many other families, and I can just speak for the ones in New York. Even if the eldest patriarch or matriarch has relinquished some level of control or autonomy to the next generation, they're in the office 4 days a week.
Yeah.
Right?
They're not retiring.
There are more octogenarians, right? I would say, actively in real estate than any other industry that I'm aware of.
Yeah, they're not letting go of that. That's their baby, and they're not letting go.
And nor should they.
Yeah.
So there's no animosity towards it. Maybe if I was some diehard real estate nut at 15, 16, but that wasn't the case.
A lot of platforms say they support GPs, but only a few actually do. If your current system makes complex raises feel complex, it might be time for an upgrade. InvestNext is built for GPs who move fast. Integrated payments, co-sponsor visibility, and a portal your LPs actually want to use. While other platforms pivot to add-on services to plug their software gaps, InvestNext is doubling down to ensure our product works for you. Raise with the tools that move like you do. Learn more at investnext.com/nocap. Was there ever a call where you're like, hey, Gramps, I just finished my last internship. How about we sit down, I start working. He's like, yeah, sure. Just apply through the channels, submit your resume.
That came later, not for me. And a true credit to him. And I'd say this for everybody. Real estate was what was his passion, right? And he truly died doing what he loved. I mean, at the age of 89. He was in the office the day he passed, and he had a leasing meeting. At that time, his youngest grandson was in the business, but as a broker at JLL, and then reviewed budgets, like two of his favorite things, and then went home and passed away. And So my career, so that door wasn't open. And obviously I'd been exposed to real estate. When my father came back for his second stint, I don't know how old I was, but my father is not the best typist, even today, and particularly not 30-something years ago. So if I was, done with my homework, basically he would dictate his comments for the lease, and I'm redlining a lease for him.
This is so funny because my
That's
dad
incredible.
types. It's like excruciating to watch. Yes,
it's
the one
the
fingers.
It's the index fingers.
Sorry, Dad.
And the one thing, it's like a pet peeve of mine now. It being not like an Aeron chair or something, right? One that can move back. So I'd be typing, and his hands would be on the back of the chair. And
he's
rocking. And like he's not realizing that as I'm like, this is my experience.
Yeah, right.
So that was my true actual exposure.
How old are you when this happened?
I'm going to say probably like 13, 14.
Got it. So you're redlining leases.
And I have no idea, right? But during dinner, then I'm asking,
Questions.
I'm asking some questions, and it didn't create a passion or anything like that. It was just my first exposure. And it was really nice to start to understand what my father kind of did for the first time. In college, even though I was a lit major, I was good with Excel and I was good with numbers. And not through my grandfather, through my father, through a relationship, I was provided an opportunity to work at a real estate hedge fund run by a gentleman named Art Rubel. And that's what opened my eyes to what I'll say is kind of the excitement of real estate, even though it was on the investment side. And so I got to work there and then do a little work for him and the firm during my senior year of college. And then I had an amazing opportunity to have an extended internship at Starwood Capital for a number of months. I kind of got shifted out of real estate because of my very limited background working at a real estate hedge fund, and was respectfully told that if I wanted to continue my employment there, it would not be directly in real estate.
What would it be doing? Like just whatever else?
At that time, Barry had started a family office, now known to be Jaws. I don't know if it was named Jaws at that time. And while I didn't have my Series 7, so I'm not technically trading, right? I'm working for the guys and doing analysis on, trading Puerto Rican muni bonds and, stuff like that, which was exciting, but not where my interest or passion lay. So I left and I worked on 2 different businesses on my own. A residential brokerage company, marketing directly to graduating college students, and an even crazier idea, an extreme park. So think of Six Flags, but with diving with sharks and skate parks and rock walls and paintball and all of this crazy stuff. And I pitched it.
Okay.
I put together not a deck. I put together a binder. I did a year and a half of research and created this. And,
Oh, wow.
And pitched it to not Dan Snyder himself, but at this time Dan Snyder had bought Six Flags, taken it private.
Wow.
Brought on the person who had previously been the president of ESPN, and that's who I had gotten in front of.
What was the feedback for that?
To pitch? Really exciting idea, really clever take on utilizing, and what it was utilizing underused real estate. Six Flags, the research I'd done using all the public information out there for Six Flags before it was taken private, was just how much land they owned and how little was actually developed for the parks themselves. And how much actually overbuilt at times. New Jersey not being one of the locations, but some of the other locations, how overbuilt the parking had been. So it was this mass opportunity, and instead of me coming and saying, hey, you guys should build housing, or No, I said you should build an extreme
Were you
park.
are you an adrenaline junkie by nature?
Not an adrenaline junkie. I was a gymnast actually,
all right.
fairly young. Like tried to be Olympic level track. Obviously, you're not Olympic level at 10, but which like trained with the U.S. national team, and
Wow.
and then I gave that up going into high school and was looking for something else. And my cousins, two of my cousins, very close to my age, grew up in Connecticut, but had a house in Vermont, were amazing skiers, and so I got into skiing, and that then turned into mogul skiing and jumping off cliffs and doing stupid stuff like that. No, the reason Action Park, and then I grew up outside. I obviously grew up in the city, but my parents rented a place on the Jersey Shore, and so grew up surfing. And those were two passions of mine, skiing and surfing. But no, it was not dissimilar to my great-grandfather, William Kaufman, and kind of where the winds are shifting. And I had read this article before I came up with this idea. And so this is going to be sometime, I don't know when the article came out, but let's call it 2005, 2004, 2005, that for the first time ever, there were more skate parks in America than baseball diamonds.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, that's something.
That's a real fact?
At
Or
least
it
back
was.
then. I don't know if it's
It
flipped.
was at a point, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And
Now
I
it's
was like,
I get it. I mean, I
Pickleball.
grew up on a skateboard.
Now it's
Yeah,
pickleball.
now it's pickleball.
Right?
Yeah. See, you could have just done
I should have done
paddle
sports.
sports.
I
back
had no
then.
idea. So anyway, I mean,
Right.
those are cool things. I ended up starting the residential brokerage company. I called it UrbanGrad Realty. And at that time in New York City, most of those companies have been swallowed up and gone, but there were companies called City Habitats
Yeah.
and Bond, New York. And there's a lot of money going into
What's the niche of
into
that?
brokerage.
You said recent college grads. So,
Yeah, so I was looking for a niche. I was looking I wasn't looking for a problem, but I went to college with a lot of kids from New York, so I didn't make a lot of friends. I was already down there with a lot of close friends, but the few friends I did make, I would get phone calls from having lived in New York and moved back and staying with my parents shortly after college, and saying, hey, I've got this job interview, can I crash on the couch? And then literally 3 days later, they're back down or wherever they flew in from or trained in from or bussed in. And I get the call, hey, I got to come back. I got the job offer. It starts in like 2 weeks. I need to find an apartment. And both myself going through the process and obviously friends, it was just a really shitty process. And also at that time, what was occurring was consolidation within the brokerage industry. And so, companies like Element and Corcoran, the way that they were looking at it was, how do we capture the customer at their first rental, right? Go through some pretty crappy walk-up rentals and then the nicer rental, and then you're buying your first apartment, you're buying your second, then you get to what is now Tribeca, but back then Upper East Side, Upper West Side, you're buying your part. And they were consolidating, they were buying brokerage companies, right, in Palm Beach, in the Hamptons, right? And they talked about getting that customer at day one, but they weren't doing it. They had no idea how to market to the graduating college student. And that's where our expertise was. And one of the things I learned in starting that business is not all great ideas make great businesses. The business should have been a lead generation company. That was our strength. As a, 25-year-old, I learned how to run a business, which has helped me tremendously through my life. But operating a brokerage company where the employees are 1099s, and you legally can't tell them, hey, you need to be in at 7:30, or hey, you lost that deal, and it was really difficult. But our strength was in our marketing. So we had two things going for us. And the first was I discovered that in looking at putting ad placements in the school newspapers, every school has a commencement issue newspaper. And a couple of them offered inserts, not all of them. But the ones that didn't offer inserts, I went to and I said, I'm going to pay for the production of the inserts. I'm going to personally drop them off, right, to your printer. You just need to ask your printer, do they have the ability to do the insert? Knowing that every printer can do it. And so we did a lot of research. I did a lot of research and found, the 30, 40 top feeder schools for first-time jobs in New York City. With obviously people can afford, apartments and, and we marketed these commencement issues. So imagine, your parents are there, they're sitting in the stadium, in the auditorium, whatever it is. They're waiting for the whole ceremony.
I really don't want my kid to move in with me.
The thing drops out, right? And they pick it up, and it's literally like, I forget, it was like kid moving to New York City, UrbanGrad, it was the most blatant thing. And the coolest thing, as a young entrepreneur at that time, at like 25, was watching the web analytics.
Oh yeah.
Of seeing people, and literally we had a calendar up, and I'd say this is Harvard's graduation, and Penn's, and Penn State's, and Syracuse, and Tulane, and all of these schools, and we could start to see the spike. And I wouldn't know when actually the commencement ceremony was, but I could have told you because
totally.
Within like 30 minutes of the start, we started to see that. The other amazing thing, I was lucky. I had a cousin who was working at Facebook at the time. Remember, this is 2005, 2006 Facebook, and they were launching their first Facebook ads, the actual platform. And he tells me, I think I'm like number 2 or we were one of the first companies to market on Facebook ads. And back then the targeting, they didn't have all the data that they have today.
Right.
But the data that they did have was what high school you went to, what college you went to, and what was your graduation year.
Perfect. Yeah.
So not only I was able to go after per college, but I can look up all the private schools in New York City. I can look up all of the private schools and top public schools in the tri-state area.
That's very cool.
And so I did that for about 3 years, went to DC, did the P&L investments thing for about 2. And then the door opened.
All right, so let's talk about Sage.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what your first projects there, what you're working on, all that good stuff. Obviously, the office space it's a hot topic. People talk about it a lot, I would say.
By the way, Jack's a hater, so just know where you're at in this conversation.
Okay. No, I believe
we're on the same side.
I believe in office.
But Jack's a hater.
He's making this up. I'm a huge office guy, big office guy. So,
but with that said, so obviously your family's background, they've got everything in the portfolio effectively, but Sage, when you started working on it, was just office, no office.
So when I came, so the door opened summer of 2010. We were at my parents' beach house. My grandfather asked me to go for a walk. In close to 30 years of my life, I don't think I'd been ever asked to go for a walk.
Oh, serious? Yeah.
And so we went for a walk, and my grandfather was very stoic, a man of very few words. I don't know if we were talking about the Jets or horse racing, 2 of his passions. And I remember on the way back to the house, I'm like, okay, that's like, is there a shoe dropping or something? And in typical, Robert fashion, he kind of just looked at me and said, I want you to come work at Sage. And it was tough. I was loving what I was doing in DC and saw a real future with that, with my uncle.
What was Sage doing at that time?
So at that time, we'll combine it still, William Kaufman Organization and Sage, managing 3 million square feet, property management, agency leasing. I call it a modicum of true asset management. We also own some townhouses in New York. That was more for light and air protection than anything else against our commercial assets. We own some land due to 1031 exchanges or property swaps over the years.
All New York?
No. Land would come to North Carolina and Pennsylvania, New Jersey.
So you got a mixed bag.
But the core was office, commercial office. And then we own this mixed-use portfolio throughout the UK. The idea when we stopped developing in the 80s and we got into in the 90s was that the office assets in New York would be core from an investment perspective, core plus. Obviously, as a developer, right, when you're developing, that is more really opportunistic. And they still wanted those level of returns, but it was, really around wealth maintenance at that time rather than wealth generation. So they bought into these mixed-use portfolios throughout the UK, about 60% weighted in Scotland, 40% in England. And so when I came aboard, we still had that portfolio. So that made up the majority of our portfolio at that time. And over the first couple of years, I sold off the UK portfolio, townhouses.
What was the reason for selling those off?
Got tired of the flights.
While we went into it, particularly for UK, with the mindset that this would be value add, we would fix them up. We would typically over there try to land government-related agencies, right? And as more of a socialist government, right? You're getting the Fed backing with things like NIH and so many others. Institutions over there. We couldn't get out of our own way. We didn't know how to sell, and so we did that, and then we held on to it.
Got it.
And it was the right time. There was some currency play, tax play. There's all these.
So you get out of that. Sounds like you're consolidating more in the office.
The idea is
commercial
simply
space
to consolidate and focus on our core expertise.
Yeah, makes sense.
Right, which is commercial office.
Okay.
So, and we did that and hummed along for about 6-7 years there, and then I had my William Kaufman light bulb moment. So it's probably about end of 2016, 2017. I'm speaking at maybe like a BizNow conference or something. And it's myself and it's all owner operators based in New York. And it's the Q&A, it's the last question asked. And someone stood up in the audience and asked, remember at this time it's called 2017, right? This is in one way, 17, 18, the pinnacle of WeWork, right? I think the news at this time in New York is WeWork is about to surpass J.P. Morgan, right, as the largest
landowner.
Office, right,
Or
renter,
office owner,
in New York. And we were asked, what did we think WeWork's largest impact would be on the industry? And I had just put my foot in my mouth in the previous question, and so it started at the other end of the dais, and immediately I'm like, oh, this is easy. And as the answers were coming, I was like, either no, that's wrong, or I don't think so. And by the time it came to me, I was kind of in this rabbit hole already. And I said, I don't think any of us understand the importance of your question. So I'm going to really think about that. And afterwards, if you'd like to give me your card, I'd be happy to reach out to you and provide the answer. I don't think I ever reached out, but I did spend a lot of time thinking about the question. And the answer that I came up with, which has really set us on the journey in which we're on right now, is WeWork, even to this day, even though it's entirely degraded to a certain extent, and I think they're doing very interesting things, but from a brand perspective, they are the only identifiable commercial real estate brand ever. People know JLL. They know CBRE.
Mm-hmm.
They know it as a company, not a brand, right? I think many people at this point understand that Blackstone owns a tremendous amount of real estate. They understand it as a company, not a brand.
You're talking about a visual identifier. Meaning if I walk into a space, I can tell that it's a WeWork, or where do you think their brand resonates?
That's a core component of a brand, right? They had a brand and people were leasing from them because they wanted to be a part of that space, whether you want to use Adam's language of community.
Mm-hmm.
They want to be a part of it. The same reason that we're wearing whatever shoes we're wearing, or we buy Patagonia versus North Face versus Arc'teryx or whatever else, right? And it's identifiable in I'm not gonna say every industry, but real estate being the largest industry and really never having a real estate brand. That was the light bulb moment for me. And so I made a bet, and again at the same time, right? You're starting to see the hospitality approach, right? The hotelification, however you want to define it, within the commercial real estate industry, right? Now for us, that's been our approach and backbone since we actually started Sage as a property management company.
Right.
By the early 1970s, we had on-site concierges, right?
Which was not happening at the time.
I don't think it's still not really happening today.
Okay.
In Australia, you'll see it in just about every Class A commercial office building. You're barely seeing it in office buildings throughout the U.S.
But just more amenitizing these spaces for the most part.
That we're seeing a tremendous amount of. And I think we'll talk about it in a moment. Like, I think most owners and operators are completely missing it.
Okay.
Yeah. Even that is a relatively recent.
Relatively recent. And has changed so much.
Right.
And not because of COVID, but has changed significantly. We built our first amenity space for our tenants back in 2014, maybe 15. And by 21, I literally demoed that space and rebuilt it. Right, from what we learned and just changing consumer behavior. But going back to so this light bulb moment of that WeWork is this first and only identifiable commercial real estate brand, and seeing where the industry was moving with this hospitality approach, and looking to the hotel industry. And the miss, I think, is that so many owners and operators looked at the hotel industry and they looked at the physical attributes, and they looked to a certain extent, more so today, to the service culture, right? So the first thing was what's in a hotel that I can bring into the office, or what's in a residential building I can bring into the office building, physical, right? That's a feature, right? Not even a benefit. It's a feature, right? But at the heart of any hotel, right, is how it is operated and the consistency of the operation. And that goes for every hotel tier, right? That's Motel 6.
Yeah.
And that's the Four Seasons. And so as we started to see this shift, we looked at, well, what else exists within the hotel industry? And with my brief background at Starwood, and then some minimal exposure to hotels during my time at P&L Investments, I took that knowledge and deep dive even more into it. And what I think most people don't realize in the United States is there's something that's known as the flag model within hotel management. Right. And so 70% of hotels in the United States are quote unquote flagged. Right. What does that mean? Right. Someone like myself or someone else, right, owns the real estate. And then you have a management agreement, or not even sometimes a management agreement. It's literally a franchising or licensing agreement, right? For a Marriott brand, for a Hyatt brand, for a Hilton brand, for an Intercontinental brand. And so many times actually then, unless it's a 5-star hotel, most 4-star hotels and below, that's actually even managed by a separate company, right? So Marriott Inc., world's largest lodging company by number of properties,
doesn't actually own.
Yeah.
Right.
Doesn't own anything, basically.
Right.
Anything.
Very select few. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And while we do continue to own our real estate, what we have stood up, where we put our time and our energy, is to building Sage to be a commercial real estate brand. And in order to accomplish that, takes a lot of marketing and getting it out there and talking about it, and communicating to the brokers and the industry at large. But at the heart of it, first and foremost, for any brand, it's consistency. And so this past September, I was staying at the Four Seasons in Florence. I took my son, my older child, my mother, and my wife after a family wedding. We went there for like just 3 days. And they were amazing. I mean, just the level of service that they can provide. I'm traveling with my kid, and what they did for my kid was just over the moon. At the same time, Sage's head of marketing was staying at a Four Seasons in Bogota for a wedding, right? And simply because of market dynamics, she was probably staying in a higher tier room than I was, right, with my wife and my son. Yet I was paying, we did the math, about 6.5x on the nightly rate, right?
Wow.
Which is the same thing akin, but we got the exact same experience. Didn't matter whether the Four Seasons I was staying at had a pool and hers didn't, or one had a Michelin star restaurant and the other just had a really good restaurant, right? Didn't matter what the bar service looked. Those are, again, features. But at the heart of it, it's the service culture, right? And it's why she was staying at the Four Seasons there. It's why I had selected the Four Seasons among many other amazing options, right? Yeah. If we were talking and this was after a holiday and one of you had said, oh, I just got back from wherever, and I say, oh, where'd you stay? You don't fucking tell me. Oh, I stayed at 1325 Market Street.
Right.
I stayed at the Ritz-Carlton. I stayed at the Marriott.
That's
I stayed
a good
at
point.
the Conrad.
Yeah.
Right?
The news is important, but if you're a busy real estate professional like me, you don't have time to skim through dozens of dry and ad-filled media outlets each day. That's why I read the CRE Daily. It's a free email newsletter that cuts through the clutter and delivers concise, witty commentary on the latest trends and transactions in commercial real estate. If you're a commercial real estate professional, you owe it to yourself to try it out and stay on top of what's happening in the industry. It's only 5 minutes a day. Visit credaily.com to sign up for free.
So John, so how does this look, right? I mean, because in the office or commercial space that you're in, is there a world where a tenant's going to be more interested in one of your properties because they saw the level of service someone else is getting at another property of yours? Is that?
That's what we believe. A lot of our business is word of mouth. We think marketing, obviously, we rely on brokers to help communicate our message.
I think you're doing a good job of this at your Madison property. Can you talk about like how is this translating there?
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like that's where you really took this approach heavy.
I mean, we're doing it at all the properties. I would say thank you. That's definitely the furthest along. But at the service side of it, right? What you experience at 437 Madison from a service perspective is the exact same service level that you get at 747. The difference is you're literally at times paying low 50s at 747, and you're paying north of $100 a square foot at 437. And so again, what that looks like first and foremost is service. Right.
So what does that mean? Like, what is an example of service you get in one of these properties that you think is
sure.
unique?
So I know our approach to the overall industry is different, I would say, than just about everyone else, in the sense that we look at that we have two very distinct customer bases, right? We have the tenant, the occupant, right? And then we have their employees. And while for the most part, we're not monetizing off of those employees. And I don't dive into, or we try not to utilize, the bullshit language. It's not bullshit, but the language around, we're an assistive tool for tenant attraction and tenant retention, right? Or talent attraction and talent retention. First and foremost, so for one subset, right, the tenant, we look to be your partner in productivity, right? We have stood up services that allow you to focus on your business while we focus on everything that falls within that we feel that falls within our wheelhouse. So if you're a law firm, and law firms are the best example of this, right? in a law firm, their business model, right, in New York
Stay
City
in the office as long as you can and never go home.
No.
No, see, okay.
the wrong approach.
That's the law firm model.
But what they care most about, honestly, is not whether you're in the office or not, right? And I'm okay with that as an office owner. What they care most about is that you are maximizing every second of your day as a billable hour, right? When my father was an
100%.
attorney in a law firm, you filled out at that time probably 30, maybe 15-minute increments on a sheet, right? I made this call, I did this so that people could be properly billed, right? Now, most law firms, 6-minute increments.
That's true.
Yeah. Okay. So
We've been here for an hour. I don't know what I did 6 minutes ago.
right? That's to keep track. Their business model is to maximize, right, the human efficiency of every attorney there. And anyone who's not an attorney in a law firm, right, is there to support and realize that business model.
So how do you guys help with that?
So, if you're a small or mid-size law firm, right, and you are out looking at space, right, the person who is in charge of that, right, was the junior partner, not at that time, but 9 months beforehand, sitting around the partnership table when they said, oh, Jimmy, Sally, you have the least amount of work on your desk right now. You're going to lead this, with no background whatsoever, right? On space selection, on onboarding an IT, even knowing that you need an IT vendor. So we stood up this program called Workplace Services. We have this umbrella Sage Services, and underneath that, there's Workplace Services. There's Lifestyle Services, which are for our members, which we'll talk about. And then there are Event Services. And under Workplace Services, right, we have not just curated, we will be the hub, right? Your single point of contact to execute on everything that you need to get into your space.
That makes sense, because there's all these other things that come with moving into any space wherever you go, and you're just making it easy.
Furniture,
it's almost like a WeWork
yeah.
approach, but not WeWork. It's almost like
Well, you're in-housing a lot of what a broker does on the commercial, on the agency side, or even as a tenant rep.
And and really good, amazing brokers will do that, but they don't have the time, energy, or bandwidth. So sure, if you're looking for a furniture vendor, they've got you, right? An IT vendor, not so much, right? Hey, we want to be providing greater pantry snacks, right?
So you're curating all of these options.
We're curating we curate the options. We create strategic agreements. You have to have, if you're going to be a furniture vendor, if you're going to be an IT vendor, an AV vendor, you have to have a dedicated person in your company. They need to be solely on for Sage and their tenants' accounts. But there has to be one person.
So you think your tenants end up getting just better attention, quicker turnarounds?
Look, more often than not, what ends up happening, even if it's a pre-built spec suite, but I'll call it over 50% of the time, if it is a build to suit, you are sitting at a weekly construction meeting, right, with the tenant, with the general contractor, with the architect, with my property management, Sage, right? And the general contractor is going to turn to the tenant, and they're going to ask, when can we expect to get the wiring plan? And that person's going to turn to my property manager or our construction manager and say, what the fuck are they talking about?
Yeah, right.
Right? And then after that meeting, before we ever set up, we were doing that, right? We're like, don't worry.
Well, it's just surprising to me, because I didn't even realize this was something that a lot of landlords didn't already do. I'm not in the space. I don't know what happens when you sign a lease and how that goes, but it makes sense. There's a lot of different things you got to do. It takes up a lot of time, and a lot of people don't want to spend their time doing that.
They're stuck doing it because they don't have an alternative, and we are the alternative.
So there's that aspect, and then you mentioned another aspect which has to do with
their employees,
right?
The members. So anyone who is an employee of a company who works within our properties that has a building access card, whether physical or digital, they are a Sage member, right? And just like any other membership club, right, there are perks and benefits of being a Sage member. So We curated an amazing list of vendors that we work with for the office side. If you're a Sage member, we formed an agreement with Equinox, where you get a discount on the gym membership, and or they'll come in and do activations, what we call Sage Social, and do activations and things like that. So we curate around the lifestyle piece too.
Got it.
And we understand that the needs of those people, right? If you're building an amenity space, right? If you think about it solely from the tenant occupant perspective, right? You're going to build boardrooms, conference rooms, town halls, meeting spaces. You'll recognize that you also need event space, right? Which will require a bar and other components, right? So that they can put on a cocktail party after the event.
Right.
They can do their employee appreciation event, right? But that's not what everything I just said provides no value to the Sage member, their employee, on a day-to-day basis. It does within the context of them as an employee, but in their day-to-day work, no. So now you have to build something that's calm, elevated, comfortable, Wi-Fi, and all those.
You're building a real
components.
brand, it sounds like,
that's the idea.
and to really stand out from the others. So tell us, as we kind of wrap up a little bit, tell us where do you think the industry is going? Are more owners going to continue to migrate towards this direction? How does the amenitization aspect of things look, and what I would call personalization is what you're doing?
I think that term personalization is most important. We were talking about service earlier, and at the heart of service, it's listening, right? So what we train our staff to do, unlike other real estate operators who are like, oh, I sent my staff, my property managers, all my front of house, even sometimes my back of the house, I sent them to the Ritz-Carlton's ladies and gentlemen, 2-day course. Great. It's a good first step. Not knocking it, but I kind of am, because you're not going to learn how to truly provide a 5-star level service, right? And so one of the keys, right, is really key, not just listening to conversation, but listening and understanding what's going on around you, right, for our staff. And at the heart of hospitality, when you really understand hotel hospitality at 5-star plus hotels, so much of it is around a concept known as surprise and delight. So if you've ever been at a hotel and you're sitting by the pool and someone walks by with a tray and they've got a tiny little plastic shot glass of a smoothie or a cold hand towel.
And that takes so little.
On a hot day, right? I wasn't staying years ago, shortly before COVID. I had a number of friends staying at the Montage in Deer Valley. Ridiculously expensive hotel. My wife and I, she's a snowboarder, so it saved us a lot of money. We're not allowed at Deer Valley.
That's right.
So we're at Park City, which is one of my favorite mountains anyway. We go over for dinner the first night we're there to see our friends. I'm in my friend's room. He's got 2 kids there. Room services come up. They've dropped the food off. And the guy is listening to our conversation, right? Not nosy, but he has his ears open. And a couple minutes later, he leaves, and the phone rings in the room. My friend picks up, and there's this 1 or 2 questions, and that's okay, and hangs up. 5 minutes later, we get a knock on the door, and they have brought up teddy bears, right? Branded teddy bears, and with candy, right, as dessert for the kids. They called up asking if it was okay to bring up the candy for the kids. And then they dropped 2 plates of hot chocolate chip cookies on the table.
I was just going to say, the cookie move's the best.
But here's the context. And he looks at one of us, and he goes, respectfully, I heard you guys were eating downstairs, right? This is for afterwards. And he gives a wink, and he walks out. And for me in operations, I'm flabbergasted.
Stayed
by
with
this.
you, yeah.
The reason it stayed with me was the conversation was that another one of my friends who's in real estate was doing a resi development in Salt Lake City. And was also doing a development, I think, in Denver. So he literally flown Denver, Salt Lake, then came out to ski. And he was talking about the weed stores in Colorado, and he'd picked up.
Oh my God!
Right, and a couple of the people around the table were talking about smoking after dinner. And he was like, basically, you're gonna have the munchies and
that's
hear this.
So funny, man.
Okay?
That's so funny.
That is
great.
hospitality,
Right,
and
yeah.
that's what we're trying to bring. Not the weed part.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to bring to the industry. And so one of the things that we've done that's proprietary to us is we've built out a member database, right? And over time, we learn both through incentivizations and simply, right? I mean, my property managers are simply able to go onto their phone into this database and add and say, Alex's favorite NBA team is X.
Yeah.
And
You're collecting a lot of touch points, and you're using this.
and we're
thoughtfully.
using that both on an occupant level and a member level to provide the most elevated workplace experience. Right? I can't provide what One Vanderbilt provides. Right? But I do know that I can run the property just as well from a traditional operations perspective.
Yeah.
But I know that I can provide better service.
Yeah.
And so the idea is it's an experience to work in a Sage property, both for the tenant and for the Sage.
It makes sense. I mean, you spend so much of your life working and in an office, and you might as well enjoy it and feel some sort of connection to the brand, which sounds like you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want a place that, whether you're coming in 2 days a week, 3, 4, right? You want a place that is enjoyable.
Right.
And what I didn't get to mention, great place to almost tail off. We went through this process a number of years ago, like many companies do, to determine vision, mission, values. We brought in this amazing person. I convinced him he normally wouldn't work with a company this small, this gentleman, Brian Mattamore, who's worked with Fortune 500 companies, and convinced him to do this. And what we came out of it was our vision as a company, our why, is to enrich the lives of people at work, right? And that is that's almost verbatim to what William Kaufman viewed when we talked about the GI Bill and his first office developments in the early 1950s. The only difference is what it takes to enrich someone's life within the built world in 1950 is drastically different than what it is in 2025. But we live by that mandate, and everything we stand up and everything we do is to effectuate on that. And I think we are successful, and as we continue to be successful, more people are going to want that. And so our business going forward is not acquiring properties, not developing properties, but being the Marriott and working with other owners to brand them like a 437 Madison, where there's the environmental branding, there's a Sage scent. Everyone is uniformed in a very specific manner that is on brand. The training that we talked about is there. It's beautiful space. And then everything else is a feature.
Yeah.
Right? Just like a 5-star hotel.
That's great, man. We appreciate you coming down, sharing
thanks
this
for
with
coming
us,
on.
sharing the
It's been fun.
history, which I'm still super impressed with. And it's clearly you're very thoughtful behind every one of these actions. It's no question that we're at a very pivotal time, especially in the commercial space. It's what happened to multifamily with the arms race for amenities is definitely happening, but there's a big differentiator between how far that service level goes, and it's no question that it's become essential to successfully running these properties in New York.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on, John.
Well, thanks for having me, guys.
Great.
It's been a lot of fun.
Awesome.
Thanks.